Hello and welcome everyone, and thank you so much for joining us for this afternoon's webinar on getting ready to reopen for pubs and restaurants. I'm Patricia Kingston from Tourism NI and I'll be facilitating today's session. This webinar is being delivered as part of Tourism NI's ongoing Tourism Enterprise Development Programme, and during this current series we're taking a look at what businesses need to consider when getting ready to welcome back visitors once restrictions begin to ease. Today, we're going to be hearing from Sharon Scott from Place Solutions, who'll be providing insights on NI domestic market, and then we'll be joined by Colin Neill, Chief Executive of Hospitality Ulster, who'll be taking a strategic look at what pubs and the restaurant sector should be thinking about right now. This year's TED programme has been designed to help the tourism industry here survive and recover as we start to move forward from the events of the past year. We're continually reviewing and evolving the programme based on industry needs, so please do let us know if there's anything else you'd like to see featured in the TED programme in future, and I'll be explaining a little bit more about how you can get in touch later on. I'll be having a short Q&A session with our speakers as well today, so if you've any questions at all, please be sure to pop those into the question box in your control panel at any time during the session, and I'll pick up as many of these as I possibly can. So now, without further ado, I'll introduce our first speaker, Sharon Scott from Place Solutions, to kick off today's proceedings. Good afternoon, Sharon.
In this short session, we're going to look at the domestic market, which will be key to recovery in 2021. So what do we mean by the domestic market exactly? This is all residents over the age of 18 with a propensity to travel anywhere in the world, really, but this year in particular, they're more likely to staycation, to stay in Northern Ireland, and that is really what we're looking at today. What we're going to do in the short time that we've got, we will cover a review of the assets and support that are available to you when you're putting together your marketing plans as we move towards reopening. We'll have a quick review of the domestic market segments, and then we'll talk in a little detail about the domestic marketing plan for 2021, your key to recovery. So what assets and support are available? There's a wide range of support from the domestic strategy document itself. There's a host of webinars that were rolled out over the course of 2020. We have some really interesting market segment videos which really capture in essence of the different segments, and this is really interesting to help you quickly understand what each segment's about. There's an action plan template which you can download from Tourism Northern Ireland and fill in at your leisure. Very important to keep a close eye on, and there's another wave of this due out very shortly, is the consumer sentiment survey. That's when we analyse the mood of the traveller, their propensity to travel, and what needs and motivations they have around that. There's market insights programs that are very important to keep an eye on the trends that are heading our way in 2021. The industry easing will be more and more important to help you keep up to date with the marketing campaigns, the trends as we move forward in 2021. So make sure you're registered on this all-important industry easing. There's the Experience Development Programme from Tourism Northern Ireland, and as well as that, the local councils are offering a lot of business and marketing support. So you will see a lot of information on this, and we will give this to you after the webinar today. We'll send you out some links to these important assets and support to help you. So some of the trends at a glance that are heading our way. This is from the Business Insights Programme for 2021. It's a very detailed report, but very useful from a marketing point of view, really capturing the trends at a glance. And here's some of them that we're seeing with no signs of abating in 2021. We've all seen the move towards health and well-being, driven by the vaccines, but actually driven by the move towards local food, towards being outdoors, to walking and activity. So that will be top of the agenda for years to come. A huge growing trend globally, and something that will impact us in Northern Ireland and which we can really benefit from, is the whole idea of conscious travel. Regenerative tourism is another term for that. This has boosted the customer awareness for sustainability, but taking that more than that to what does tourism mean? What does it mean to our communities? How can we protect the environment and the assets that have made our tourism what it is today? Digital transformation obviously will be key, and we've seen everyone move towards online for booking, for buying, for searching for their travels and their trips. So that's some of the things to be aware of and read through the consumer insights reports that are available. We look at the quick look through the priority segments. I would really encourage you to look at these in more detail through the assets and supports that are available. It is a really detailed piece of work, but the segments are, in essence, there are 6 involved in the Northern Ireland domestic market segmentation strategy. And we'll look at, in particular today, given our times, at the priority segments for growth. So aspiring families is about 30% of the market, and with 15% are actually each, the social Instagrammers, the younger element, and the natural quality seekers, the other slightly older element, are key, and those are the ones to really prioritise and focus your marketing efforts on. So what are these segments? Aspiring families. It is what you would expect, very strong family focus. They're very into their activities, which are important, a variety of interests catering for all the family, from mum to young kids. These people, in terms of their demographics, are most likely to be between the age of 35, 44. They'll have young children under the age of 16. So that's an important element at 30% of the market this summer in particularly. If we look at consumer sentiment, they're looking to come, particularly July into August when travel opens again. So they do quite a lot of research. They're into the seeking value. They're not, but they're not prepared to pay for quality if they think it's worth it. The next one that we come to are natural quality seekers. This segment, slightly older age group, the average age would be about 55 years of age. It's more likely to be the male booking here, and they're likely to have older kids, but probably travel on their own. They're also more likely to travel out of season, which is good when we're looking at marketing and extending the season this year. They're nature lovers. They enjoy being outdoors. The whole issue of sustainability is very, very important to them. They like to plan. They're probably likely to use the digital platforms online. They prefer slightly more gentle activities. The final one we look at is the social Instagrammers. These guys are younger in age group. Actually, they're 18 to 24, 29%, 26% below the age of 34. So certainly that younger catchment. They like the buzz, the atmosphere, the nightlife, and the pubs when they open. They actually want to broaden their mind as well, and this is a slightly shift, that they're not just party, they want to look at the activities, really have something to do as they're in the location. So that's going to be an important element of growth. So what key elements do you need to look at in your marketing plan for 2021? So when you're looking at your marketing plan for 2021, the strategy for growth guides you with 4 key pillars or key themes from which to focus your marketing efforts for 2021. And we'll look at those in some detail over the next few slides. Effective communications. This is really about delivering communications that resonate with and influence the domestic audience to take that holiday, to make that booking or that short break in Northern Ireland over and above other places which they could choose to go. So you've really got to think here about what segment does your current marketing experience appeal to most. Is it the aspiring families? Is it those younger social Instagrammers? Think about their passion points, their motivations, their needs, all the details, and you really have to effective communications to drive this message forward. So the digital and above the lines, where do they hang out? Where can you find these people? We talked about social Instagrammers, they're in social media. Maybe the natural quality seekers will look to websites and more stationary digital platforms. Think about where you'll find them and actually effectively target those particular channels. And we've mentioned digital importance is growing in importance for all the segments, so it's very important that this is clear in your messaging. Think about those important messages that the consumer sentiment surveys are really driving home at the minute. The whole issue around safety, feeling safe, your COVID safety policies, your good to go standards. The real message and key is escapism, getting away from it all. That's what people want in a break to Northern Ireland. They do want exclusive packages, immersive experiences, but very much important is the idea of flexible communication. So how through your communications policy can you drive those key messages home? And who can you partner with when you're looking at effective communications? You'll have that within your own business. How do you work with your local council? How do you work with Tourism Northern Ireland to really make sure that the consumer is aware and your communications channels are effective? The whole issue, all of you will be aware of the need to drive compelling experiences, attractions and events, and 2021 will be so important in this regard. We will be guided by the guidelines and the restrictions, but this is important to really find, build and improve new and existing tourism experiences. How do we do that? We will look at your target markets again. What additional elements, additional product and experience elements do you need to win that priority segment? How can you enhance your existing offer? Is it a day trip you're offering? How can you extend that to maybe include an overnight with another accommodation provider? What added value can you bring to your experience, whether it be provision of food and drink, additional activities, offers for different members of the family? How can you drive and make that more compelling and more likely to book the experience? How can you move your experience into the local nighttime offer? How can you collaborate with the entertainment venues? All those elements to really make a compelling experience. And most effectively, the costing and the pricing structures makes it commercially viable and appealing to your target market itself. Citizen and community engagement will be key to this year. How do you build your local engagement around your business? How are they aware of it? We all know in Northern Ireland the value of word of mouth in marketing and in domestic travel. That is important. How do we drive a sense of pride in our tourism offer? How can we use our local residents to be advocates for Northern Ireland as a tourism destination? It's important that we help this with maybe organising fam trips for the local community to come in and see what it is you actually do in your business, and how could we leverage that and get and employ local people? How can we look at our training and our support facilities to really make that community engagement key part of our marketing effort? Very much important this year, and something I know many of you are already working very hard on, is the idea of industry collaboration, working together to drive the experiences and the packages for 2021. Who do you collaborate with in your local business community to improve your experience and your offer? How do you work with the local council, Tourism Northern Ireland, in driving that communications and marketing message? That will be crucial this year more than ever to driving the domestic tourism offer. So finally, your recovery marketing plan itself, we've gone through how you can structure and develop that. It's really all about inspiring people to staycation and home, to embrace Northern Ireland's giant spirit. Looking at all those, you'll need to be aware of the brand. I know that we've done lots of webinars and there's lots of support available to really understand how you can awaken the giant spirit within your own business and your experience to the visitors. We'll be looking at the rolling out in the weeks and months ahead of a Tourism Northern Ireland campaign, a recovery marketing campaign to really help you target those domestic travellers. The councils will be running series of local campaigns, so as a business be aware of what's happening, when it's happening, when it's safe to do so, and really look at hooking your individual marketing efforts with what's happening at the council and Tourism NI level. That will be key, that everybody collaborates and works together. Really be aware of consumer research. That is so crucial this year more than ever. It will really inform your marketing tactics. This is all about acting quickly. The market is going to open up. When it does, we anticipate that will happen very quickly. We all know with that latent demand for travel, so it is about planning now for the months ahead, and that is so important that we actually start that now with your business colleagues, with your existing staff, and with the wider agencies that are already working very hard on this marketing element. It's all about the epic fun without the epic track. Some of the visuals that we've been showing through the presentation look at the round in the autumn. It's not about how far, it's about how fun. That's your aspiring families to the forefront of that particular image. It's about the warmth of welcome, the ability to get away from it all, very front and foremost in the last consumer sentiment. They want escapism, they want the world-class food and drink showcased to them, the beauty of the landscape and those important immersive experiences targeted to their particular needs. There will be an increased focus on the good to go standard to drive those feelings of safety, that all-important consumer confidence. The We're Good to Go logo is now supported by a global quality mark under Safe Travels, giving it an added value to you. So make sure that's absolutely prominent in all your marketing collateral across your digital platforms. The consumer sentiment research is showing that 2 out of 3 people will actually choose a location that's demonstrating we're good to go, as opposed to maybe somewhere that's not. So it's important that we show our accreditation, show that we are ready and we are safe to reopen. This is all about getting the best projects for immediate bookings. The bookings, the planning we know is happening now. The bookings will come, and hopefully by working together on our marketing planning, we will have a very, very good season and recovery. Thank you.
Sorry, Patricia, you're just muted at the minute.
Thanks so much. Sorry about that. I must have hit the microphone twice. Sorry about that, guys. Just testing you were all paying attention. Thanks so much to Sharon. That's a really useful overview. And don't forget, we'll be speaking with Sharon again a little bit later on. So if you've any questions at all for Sharon or for our upcoming speaker, Colin, please just pop those into the question box in your control panel. And it's now my absolute pleasure to welcome Colin Neill from Hospitality Ulster, who's going to be sharing some of his wisdom with us all today. So good afternoon, Colin. Great to have you with us. I'll let you kick off with a bit of an overview, and if any questions do come through during your chat, then I'll pop in and interrupt you. But you can go ahead there, Colin, and kick us off.
Thank you very much. And look, folks, thank you for giving up what is where I'm sitting in Larne, a nice sunny afternoon. Obviously God's country, so the sun always shines here. Folks, I'm going to talk through obviously preparing reopen for the pub sector, the restaurant sector. And when I say restaurants, that's basically our coffee shops and all our food premises. And look, I mean, for those that don't know me, Hospitality Ulster, membership body for the hospitality sector, so membership across our pubs, restaurants, coffee shops, accommodation, and indeed much wider. Now, as an industry body, I couldn't run a coffee shop, pub or restaurant to save my life, but I have engaged with lots of our members and our strategy groups and just looked at the items that you should be thinking about, refreshing your memory just, but I appreciate like every one of you could run a better establishment than I could. And it really is now, look, government obviously have published their pathway document, and whilst some may say the government isn't planning reopening yet, I can rest assured Hospitality Ulster is really in the depth of planning. We have indeed launched our recovery plan, which we have presented to MPs, all the political parties, all of our ministers, and we're engaging right down through all our local councils and everything to make sure they realise the value of our hospitality industry, because it's Northern Ireland's 4th largest employer. It has a turnover of 2 billion a year and actually makes up 21% of all private sector employment in the province. So it's not one of those industries that should be dismissed as nice to go to, but not important. And I say very much this today is really walking you through some of the things to think about, some of the things you should be planning now, planning to do. But I say, you probably guessed already, I'm not into huge number of slides and such. I'm very much into a conversation as well. But look, I mean, top of your agenda right now, folks, and it's the top of everybody's agenda, probably, as I don't need to say it, is really finance. You really need to be engaging with your banks, your landlords, and your suppliers. You know, you've got to actually work out payment plans if you're in debt, forecasts with the banks, because all of the support will end, you know, as we reopen. The protection around landlords will end. Banks will be looking at how you're going to repay. And indeed, if you're on cash only with your supplier as you open, a lot of premises won't have that cash to pay. So I know it's difficult. I know it's probably the most painful thing to talk about, but we really need to not bury our heads in the sand. Everybody needs to try and work out what they can do and talk to the people if you owe people money. You know, we are talking to the government about a Kickstart grant, and still a conversation ongoing, but happy to take lots of questions on that later. You know, key, I speak to all the major banks regularly, and what they tell me is they are giving a fair hearing to people that are turning up, that have done cash flow predictions, you know, that have spoke to their landlords and can go to the bank and say, my landlord, here's our payment plan, my suppliers, here's your payment plan. That's what you will get, the wriggle room for the banks. Rocking up and just saying, I need another 10 grand, won't cut it. Just isn't cutting at all. And for any of our Hospitality Ulster members on here, remember, you know, with free legal helplines and stuff to help you through this process as well. But onto that, okay, starting to look at reopening, and it might sound a bit strange, guys, but it's time to revisit your business model. Is it still fit for purpose? It may have been fantastic pre-COVID and still may be fantastic offer, but you have to remember consumer trends. We probably accelerated consumer trends, you know, we brought them forward 10 years in the last year, but even right down into, like, previously, a lot of guys in the industry would have been maybe target high volume, low margin, which was great when you could do that, but we will return with some degree of social distancing, and that means lower numbers. So does that mean higher pricing, or is it better management of your costs? Above all, guys, there is latent demand out here for reopening. Avoid discounting, focus on value for money, quality product. You know, we sell an experience, and this is our opportunity to reset the dial on some of our pricing, because some of our pricing was pushed far too low on it. And I think it is having those honest looks, you know, revisit your trading patterns pre-COVID. Was it actually profitable? And I know that's going to sound daft, but you know, were there days you were open because you felt you should be open but cost you money? Would you be better doing a 5 or a 4 day week? Would it actually be more profitable? And we have to look at that now. No one has the reserves in the bank to fund any loss making. Reopening is going to be hard to break even anyway with social distancing and other restrictions. So looking after, you know, really examine all your previous models. And I say, you may examine them all and think, yep, they're all fit for purpose, I'm good to go. That is brilliant. But you may actually be able to turn around and say, and I have spoke to quite a few, some of our leading restaurateurs and publicans who are turning and saying, you know what, that's no longer viable to do, and I'm going to reshape my business model. Now, you know, closing lock making days, you know, there are hard decisions there about staff and all of that, but I think no one can afford to avoid the tough decisions. We've got to make them, and we've got to make them now. It can't be kicked down the road. I mean, it is about, you know, reinvigorate your offer to what are the new trends. You know, there is new embedded customer habits. You know, all of the research is suggesting it's about more healthy, more active. Will they last? Not all of them, but some of them definitely will, because there were trends that were starting, that were already there. We just now, instead of having 10% of the people doing it, 30% are doing it. So it really is about looking at that, and we'll bring forward some research on that ourselves soon. And it is, say, examine your offer, make sure it's fit for purpose, and make sure in the climate we're going into on restricted numbers that it's actually at least financially sustainable until we can get to some sort of profitability level. And the fundamental, guys, reprice everything. Remember, price is based on the cost of the product and the demand for it, and your capability to meet that demand. If cost and demand have changed, the selling price has to as well. And there's been a gap in the period. Yes, you've seen, we've got the rates. We've lobbied really, really hard to get another rates holiday. I've spent umpteen times on calls to Westminster with our colleagues in GB around the whole VAT element. And whilst we didn't get it on beverage, we got it to agree on food. Do not pass those savings on. Those savings are help you to get back to being viable, help you pay your debts. Those are savings you can actually take to the bank in your forecast and say, well, I don't have this 30 grand rate bill this year, or I don't have the 25 grand VAT bill that I normally have. And use those to actually, get to a profitable level as quickly as you possibly can. And folks, don't underestimate dates. And by that, it's not just your sell-by date. I mean, it's cash flow. It's make sure the stock, converts to cash as soon as you can. Keep an eye on the dates and turnover. Go for that, short-term stock, and stock control. Do a stock take before you open. Obviously identify. You will have, if you have beverage there, a lot of the soft drinks are now going out of date. The lucky thing, spirit doesn't go out of date. Beers will. You'll have some food products maybe that you didn't move on, and they're now out of date. So look, go through your stock, do a stock take, and keep a really tight stock profile, not just for reopening, right through. Be alert too about your operational safeguard, and that's your cash and revenue controls. You could be back in there, cut staff and think, okay, well, I'm going to be in the kitchen or I'm going to be behind the bar, and then your cash control gets lost in the day-to-day operations. So revisit all your policies there, revisit your procedures. Simple things like, read the meters, watch your gas cost, your water and energy costs. Be aware of all your costs. Do not get caught out. And look, grill the takeaway topic, which basically means if you've pivoted into the takeaway offering, it may be good. It may be something you can sustain, but don't start competing with yourself. Is it diminishing the offer that you've got, or indeed, can you run both successfully? Because the takeaway offer is a production offer. It's different than normal service. Can you layer them on top of one another? Because they're both going to be wanted at the busier time of the weekend. And I'm not saying you should stop. It's really a case of having a look to make sure you don't damage your core product. If you can add it as an extra revenue stream, that's really, really important, vital and good. But you've got to get the balance right, that you don't damage your core product offer. And look, you're only as good as your team. Have you started engaging with your staff yet? Do you actually know how many still work for you? Because remember, 80% salary they're picking up, they can be doing another job. They may have been doing another job for a year. For all you know, we did notice in the 2-week period just before opening at Christmas that a lot of the premises went to the staff. The staff were going, no, I don't work for you anymore. So have you actually got the staff there that you think you have? I mean, one of the things we're saying is, look, re-engage now, start retraining them. And to be honest, look, that'll flush out people that aren't actually on your payroll properly. You're going to need to do anyway, go back through your mandatory food hygiene and health and safety training, but don't forget your customer service training, particularly in the COVID environment. I mean, have you trained your staff so that how to deal with people that won't wear a mask? And we're going to have to reteach people to work. We're actually going to have to re-socialize our teams, because we sell a social experience, but our teams have been locked up for a year as well. The good thing, again, if you're a Hospitality Ulster member on here, not doing any recruiting or promoting, obviously. But we have an online training platform which is free to all of our members, covers all your statutory training, but it's 40 odd accredited modules, right through customer service, wine training, right through. Get your staff on it now. While on furlough, they can be required to train. So you can be making them train, and the online platform is perfect for that. So really key, engage now with your staff. And look, you've got to address any staff safety concerns. You will have staff that are concerned about coming back in hopefully what is a post-COVID environment, but it hasn't gone away. So involve them when you do your risk assessments. You share your risk assessments with them and address any concerns now. You don't want to have them when you're actually trying to reopen. And again, we have training modules available, I think 6 on actually reopen under COVID conditions. But also think clever here, guys. Bringing back staff, look carefully at your staff rotas and avoid unnecessary costs. A bigger team might allow you to be more flexible. It will also allow you to look at the most economic way in the relation of what tax thresholds, when do you have to pay out taxes. These are difficult decisions. I know a lot of the industry where the staff, they're like family. We are by nature a hospitality business. So, it has to be done. You're doing no one any favors if you bring everybody back, you have everybody on, and you go broke. That helps none of the staff, and it definitely doesn't help you. You're also going to have to rebuild your team. They haven't operated a team in a while. It is like actually opening a new business, opening new premises. So consider trial runs and stuff before you reopen to rebuild that team and get them all working together, because efficiency will not be there. You may have chefs that have only cooked at home for the last year. Customer service is always key in our industry, and it's going to be even more important as we come back. Your brand is your customer service. Yes, look, we've got to think about social distancing, masks, all of the regulations that may or may not come our way. But look, engage with your customers now through social media. If you have a database, an email database or whatever of your customers, start engaging them out. Remind them you're there. Start to involve them in the journey of reopening so that they see as you're preparing the links you're going to on hygiene rules, what new menus are coming. Build up a demand within your own customer base that is almost knocking your door going, are you there yet? Like the kids in the back of the car kicking your seat. Have them wanting and have them actually on the journey back with you, so you develop the loyalty. There is latent demand out there. There really is. All of the research says so. But look, it is about, there are age groups who will not return as quickly as we'd like. Is that your customer base? Do you need to flex with that? Or do you need to give them more reassurance? Because safety is going to be a key driver. Obviously, TNI have Good to Go, which is getting heavily marketed, and indeed across now the UK as well. But it is about the atmosphere is key. Look, there's a difference in having sanitized premises but a sterile atmosphere. You've got to make sure people are coming out into the hospitality sector to escape COVID. So yes, you've got to meet all the standards of hygiene, sanitation, social distancing that prevail at the time, but you can't have a sterile atmosphere. You've got to try and work hard to make sure people have an experience when they come out. And that can be difficult if you're operating on a smaller team. That's why you've got to get through your whole business model. Start from the beginning that you're opening a new business and go right through every detail, because staffing at first may mean you're back behind the bar, back behind the actual oven or whatever. But you've got to manage your shifts well and look for things initially when you're opening. I don't think there's the capacity, but as times move forward, again, look at apprenticeships and stuff, the funding that's around them to help rebuild your teams and bring in new blood and new innovation as well. And look, reservations, I mean, the line I've sort of talked to people is, have you reservations about reservations? And unoccupied tables cost money. Analyze your reservation system, particularly if you have an online booking system that matches the capacity of your premises now. But consider a deposit, consider a non-refundable deposit. We're starting to see that come into play. Exceptional circumstances, yeah, refund it. But you can't afford, if you're just running at break even on a sustainable level, you can't afford to lose 2 or 3 tables on a night because of no-shows. So revisit your policy and make sure customers are aware of it, and explain why you're doing it. If you're introducing a deposit scheme, explain to people why you're actually doing that. There is also, the customer trend has developed far more now about our circular economy. And what I mean there is that support local. You've got to actually think like your customers. Your customers are now looking, thinking, well, I go and support my local coffee shop, restaurant, pub, or whatever. But they're expecting you to be supporting the local butcher, the local baker. And it's important you do look for sources of local produce, not just because it's local, but it's the provenance. It actually is the future of our industry. It's going to move more seasonal product, more local product, more a higher experience and a premium price for it. But you've got to deliver an upfront if you're going to actually try and charge the price for it. And rethink outsourcing, folks. I know it's always painful, but is there somewhere you can move some of your production offsite? If you haven't got the staff levels, can you buy, products, it may be as simple as pre-diced carrots and those type of things, because the manpower to do it, ideally you want to prep everything from scratch in your kitchen. You want to do everything you can, but it's, can you outsource? Had you historically your own bookkeeper, where now you're better outsourcing it? Look at every single thing you do and look at the best way to do it that will impact your bottom line, but won't impact your customer experience. And look, folks, I say purposely have just kept this to talking in generality, because you can run out these places much better than I can. The key, I think, the bottom line is, look, folks, there is a future. There will be casualties in this, and I hate to say it. Good businesses will go to the wall, other good businesses will survive, and new entrepreneurs will come in to fill those gaps. But we have, say, 4th largest private sector employer in Northern Ireland, key player in every council area in our province. If there's a benefit of COVID, and there must be few, is that hospitality, I think, is now being valued much more than it ever was. People have missed it and realised how much it was their life, and government have realised just how big a role it plays in our economy. So we will, I think, have a new higher profile industry, and one where people have realised the value. Okay, I'll cut to the chase now, and it's going to be the questions I normally get in these things is, that's all very well, but when are we open? What are we getting? What are the rules? Bottom line, reopening. The government, Northern Ireland government, out of the 4 areas, has not given dates and refuses to give dates. As a representative body of the industry, we have pushed for dates, and we have said, well, look, not giving us the dates, give us the data. I may be thick, as some would suggest, it's complicated data, but I do have smart friends who could read it. My best guess is probably phased reopening in a May, June, July sort of approach. Now that can move in weeks. The variables are such. It's obviously the R rate, as we've all become to know, very knowledgeable about. There's the vaccination rate, there's the hospital occupancy rate, there's the new variant rate. On top of that, there's the weather, and on top of that, there's politics. So it's a bit like nailing jelly to the wall in a formula. But we are working really hard with government to push. The whole approach to opening has to change. Everybody has to learn from before. We need now to come with an approach of, here are the current rules required, and rules that are based on evidence, but also then move to a position of, okay, if you can comply with those rules, you can open. But if you can't, you can stay closed and get some financial help for a period longer, because the system before said, okay, X and Y can open, and shoves you out there with no choice and a difficulty maybe to comply and actually be sustainable. We're watching as an industry body very closely the legal challenges that have happened in England. As anybody, and I'm sure government expect, we have a legal team, we have QCs and all watching it to make sure that we are getting a fair crack of the whip. But we're not wanting to take on government, we're wanting to work with government, and we're appealing to government to work with us, plan for the reopening, engage with the industry, because there are things we can do that they don't know. I'm not a specialist in hospitality, I never claimed to be, but I have got lots of them at my disposal. I've yet to meet the government's specialists in hospitality. So, folks, happy to take any questions or criticisms. Give me a kick and I'm quite happy, I'm used to it. Thank you very much for listening, if there's anybody still there.
Yes, we've lots of questions coming in, Colin, and I think for a Friday afternoon, I'm so impressed. We've great turnout today, and everyone's sticking with us. One of the things that's coming up again and again is just about the regulations and what the restrictions will be. Whether we think they'll be similar to what they were before lockdown, or are we likely to see stronger regulations? I mean, have we any idea of what they might look like?
There's nothing currently, and look, I'll be honest, government have not engaged since this lockdown started. Although actually, one of the calls while I'm sitting here is one of our ministers ringing me, so they'll be coming to look and spend the weekend talking to me. But look, we obviously we look to the other jurisdictions and see what's going on there. Now, I'm probably lucky. I'm the only trade body in the province that's on a number of Whitehall working groups. I'm actually on the Hospitality Strategy Steering Group and stuff, and there was only 4 tradies on that, so I'm from there, from Northern Ireland. Gives us a bit of insight, and obviously then, as I said, look, we're watching. We've seen legal challenges from Manchester around the main table meal requirement and stuff. Now, what I've always said to people is, look, you can never look there and think that applies straight to here. The legislation is different, and also, look, the situation, our parameters will always vary a bit. But we are keen to work with government. We have been off getting some support for some new measures that we think can reduce the measures. We also want to engage with government, because government's own evidence said, like, the curfew had a marginal impact on COVID. And look, none of us want to spread COVID. That's it. We don't want to make our customers sick. We need them. We don't want to make our staff sick. We need them. We don't want to make ourselves or our families ill. So it is about working with government, saying, well, look, is that needed? And it's key for government, if they engage with the industry now, which we've asked for on our recovery plan, happy to share it, goes into that whole approach of how to engage and the structures. It is about weighing up and saying, well, look, that regulation there has marginal impact on health, but a major impact on the industry. Can we do something else to mitigate that wee marginal bit and remove those? I think you will see, obviously, social distancing, I think, will remain with us for a period of time, mask wearing and stuff. But it's the key elements for the industry are a lot of it's around table size, households per table, curfew, those type of elements, and those are the key elements that we're trying hard to work with government and see how we can make sure we mitigate that. Obviously, outdoor will play a key role as well, and it's good we're coming into the summer again. I'd say I had a call with the Permanent Secretary from Communities today, and I was talking about, again, making sure outdoors that we haven't slid away from that positive, flexible approach for outdoor. But outdoor won't work for everybody, because they don't have it. A lot of places don't have the outdoor space to use. And also to look, it looks lovely. Where I'm sitting in Larne here, I'm looking out. It's beautiful today, sun out. I think I'll book a table for Saturday. It could be raining sideways for Saturday, and if you're expecting me to dine outside in the sideways rain, it's a space we can use and will always use, but it's harder to use, say, for dining than it is maybe for a drink and stuff. So the key in all of this is going to have to be working with us, and I, for one, am not going to let them off the hook for not working with us. I'm not known for being bashful, and I say I will be doggedly pursuing them to make sure they engage and work with us to do the best we can to get out of this crisis.
Yeah, just you mentioned about outdoors there. There's a note had just come in there about the possibility of reopening outside beer garden type areas before opening the sort of indoor restaurants. Is that something that's been mentioned at all or on the cards here?
Well, look, I mean, I suppose my starting point is all of our premises have spent a fortune on COVID measures. We have the best in the world. I take calls now from other countries asking about our regulations, because the actual guidance, we and our partners in UK Hospitality and the British Beer Pub Association, the guidance that's in Northern Ireland was developed by ourselves and then adopted by Westminster, and then came to Northern Ireland and was adopted here. The starting point has to come from, look, we should be all treated the same and open the same, under the same rules, because we're safe. That said, I think, government, there will be a debate to be had there. But there are, I mean, if you turn around and say ventilation is going to be a key thing going forward. So, well, outdoor space is pretty much as ventilated as you can get. So that must be an easier argument. So I think there's a high probability you'll see outdoor space come early in the government's planning. Yeah,
it does seem to make sense. I'm going to give you a breather for a second and come over to Sharon, who's been patiently waiting here. Sharon, I just wondered if maybe to kick off, you could give us just some insights in the domestic market, specifically in the context of the pubs and restaurants sector. I know you gave us a great overview at the start of the market at the minute. Is there anything you could maybe share just that would be maybe really relevant to these guys on here this afternoon?
Yeah, and there's a question popped up in the chat room in relation to the comeback of the international markets.
Yeah.
So what we're seeing is, the domestic market certainly will be for this summer. The international markets, really 2022, we're looking at been going to a lot of trade shows, virtual trade shows recently, and certainly the American market, some of our bigger international markets, that's what we're saying. So we're really concentrating on closer to home markets. The consumer sentiment survey, which you've heard us talk about, and the new wave of that will be out next week. But the indications from that are sort of again, it's down to the segments within the domestic market, the aspiring families, as you would expect, coming in sort of July, peaking in August. The older market segment may be coming towards the autumn things. But it's something that Colin's already picked up on, and I see a number of questions around that whole idea of the experience. 51% of those surveyed, and it's risen quite considerably since the last wave, are really looking for this idea of an exclusive package. Now, that's not just because we want to get out there and we want to get back into hospitality. It's really this element of consumer confidence. So where the hospitality, the restaurants and bars, cafes can hook up with other elements of the trade within their local areas, so accommodation providers, which we had a great session with over 80 of them this morning, and it's the same sort of message. Do look to collaborate, to work together, to package, to keep people in the local area for longer. That will benefit everybody, and what we've seen is where accommodation is offering an evening meal that's pre-arranged, pre-booked. Again, the consumer is confident because of the whole issue around safety. So I think the key message that we're seeing coming through is 47% of those surveyed just recently in the last few weeks are saying they're actively open to ideas. So they're planning their break, they're planning their getaway, short breaks followed by maybe slightly longer breaks later on in the summer. So really start your marketing now and that's across every sector of tourism with Northern Ireland, particularly hospitality and all the operational issues that Colin has already mentioned. So plan now, be really creative. There's a question in there that's very dear to my own heart, working in the food and drink sector, is about the whole trends, and I've mentioned a few of them, and so has Colin, about the real increase in trends for local food and how we can really have that opportunity to galvanize that market within hospitality. So that's something that we'd see no signs of really abating. It all links back to the value. The consumer sentiment is saying that people are looking for quality, and that's correlated to value. So value does not mean cheap, as Colin has already said. So it's actually pegging at that market, so you can offer the local food and drink. The question came in, and they were listening to some of the trends, and that's great. You know, that's been our key message all this week with every sector. We really have got to be a bit nerdy about this. We've got to follow those trends. We've got to look at our marketing tactics in relation to those trends. So there is a move towards health and well-being. Those, you know, they mentioned the probiotic, and where the vegan and those type of dishes coming through, and also that lovely comfort food which we all have craved. Anything that's not cooked by me is good at the minute. So that's something that to bear. And again, the local drinks and the relevant to the area. So for everybody in the sector, it's about collaborating in your local area, keeping them here, keeping them longer, and getting them to spend a bit more, and that'll be sort of key to our recovery.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much, Sharon, and covered off quite a few of the questions that have popped in there as well, making my life very easy. Thank you so much. Colin, obviously, as you anticipated, a lot of the questions that are coming in are sort of on the finance side of things, people wondering about lump sum opening grants that might be available, and also people maybe having issues with landlords who are expecting 100% of the rent to be paid even if they're closed. Is there any advice on either of those areas that you can give to people?
The Kickstart grant, as we would term it, reopening grant, you know, we've been engaged, and again, I met the finance minister actually last night as well. You know, there's nothing yet on officially confirmed, but like it's something that we're pushing hard for, because the hospitality sector in particular, you know, if you take the non-food side, 23 days open in the last year. You take the food element, 121, I think it is, days open in the last year, and even when they were open, couldn't perform. They weren't like a retail shop where when you're open, you're open. We were heavily curtailed. So the industry is starved of reserves, so it needs cash. It even just needs cash to pay their supplier, so the supplier can pay the producer, so the actual flow and credit terms start again. So it's top of my agenda at the minute, is a Kickstart grant. The rent piece of it, we've had no great luck, and I say we ourselves, UK Hospitality, BPA have met the Chancellor, everybody on this, Treasury, all of the government departments. There has been the moratorium that didn't allow you to be actually evicted from this, but that'll end in about June. Government stance still in this is that, you know, landlords and tenants should engage and negotiate, and that's easy to say. And look, end of the day, I respect a lot of our landlords maybe only have one property, that's their living and their income and their pension. But unfortunately, we're left with this. It is still down to landlords and tenants. A sensible landlord will realise that you can't take blood out of a stone. You know, places have been shut and they don't have no money. Are you better with a tenant, you know, paying you something as no tenant, because you'll force them to go bankrupt? But it is a conversation. I'm on a call on Monday afternoon with Whitehall, and again, it's actually again top of all four of the trade bodies' agenda on that. Doesn't help if you've got a landlord that's pushing, I know, and I apologise that I can't bring a solution on those, but believe me, it's we're not just letting it go.
Yeah,
Colin, we've talked a
Sorry, go ahead, Sharon.
Colin, we've talked a lot about the role of hospitality and the revitalisation of the high street, and I think that's sort of related to that whole issue of landlords and property as well. You know, the hospitality, you've done some great figures with the economists on the value in terms, not only in terms of jobs, but the economic impact of hospitality to the high street. How important is that going to be, and what are you bringing forward to help that argument?
I mean, we're going to be a huge player. You know, hospitality, and one of the challenges, particularly pre-COVID, was hospitality was seen as fairy tale stuff. You know, as one minister once told me, the problem was we're everybody's friend and nobody's family, because 4 departments at least own us, if not more, and have an input to what we do. But I mean, we put a lot of time and effort into actually proving, you know, as you say, not just that we're Northern Ireland's 4th largest employer, but we buy 1/3 of agri food. we're 2/3 of the tourism spend, and indeed tourism is 1/3 of our income. All of the future predictions on our high street, it's leisure and hospitality, are going to be the cornerstone of your high street. Our social cohesion role, our community role is vast, and again, spread from our towns right into our rural villages and stuff. And we're the people that's going to put real jobs into real locations, all of the locations that aren't seen as the place for all your, IT companies and all to base. But we're also the driver. If you're going to set up a blue chip company, even in Northern Ireland, the first thing you look at is you're going to have to bring in staff, high-level staff, to set up from around the world. So what's the accommodation, what's the education, and what's my social life like? Because that's the only way you get staff to come. So we have a huge role going forward. And I spent quite a bit of time today with the Department of Communities on that role, and I'm pleased to say people are starting to recognise that now. I mean, our town centres, our high streets, our villages are going to have to get unique identities. It's not about having all the same shops, and retail will still have a role there, but we're going to have, it's going to be a social experiential space, and we're key to that. So I do think there's huge opportunities for us. Look, regrettably, there are going to be casualties in this, and we won't even know the full impact of that probably to the second quarter when we have all the things come together in that period. But the future for us, I think, as a key economic driver, we'll rebound quicker than anybody else, because we don't have to wait for an order or to sign a contract. When somebody says we can open and trade, we'll open and trade, and we'll immediately re-employ. And I think that's key that government has to realise. And we're pushing heavily that the industry should have a hospitality team within government, because, and rightly so, we have a Tourism Northern Ireland, but there's no hospitality element there. And we have to get that cohesion of policy to make sure we can actually move forward rapidly.
Yeah, absolutely. Funny when you think about kind of opportunities there. We have had a question here about whether or not there might be any kind of startup support available if perhaps if someone was wanting to offer facilities for, say, motorhomes for the staycation market, or just trying to then, I suppose, maximise on what this new kind of market will be for some of these guys. Is that something that you're aware of? If there's anything that might be available?
Nothing yet. I mean, the only real startup monies currently are geared at the large hotels out of Invest in I. But don't worry, I'm meeting the chief executive of Invest in I on Monday. No stone left unturned, guys. I am determined. It's been a long year, but believe me, I'm taking my vitamin tablets and I'm not going away.
The voucher scheme that has been mentioned along the way, is that still on the table? And is there likely to be something there that can be helping the hospitality guys?
I mean, you have obviously the tourism voucher scheme about accommodation, and I'll leave you to Patricia to talk about that. But on the high street voucher scheme, it is in the Minister's economic recovery plan, and I don't want to steal the Minister's thunder, but I'm optimistic, shall we say, that money will be found. One of the key things we're saying, and again, it's our recovery plan, is engage with us around it. Timing is key. There's no point in giving us, giving that voucher to the Northern Ireland consumer if we're already busy. So timing is key. If we reopen and there's a surge, hang on to a surge of customers, not COVID. We reopen, hang on to that until that levels a bit and come in and stimulate the market. We were always quiet in that September, October, back to school, money taken out times. So use it wisely, target it, and also put a marketing campaign behind it, because government won't be able to legislate where you spend it. And what we have to try and do is we appeal then to people, back to that support your local, support local. And I mean, I'm talking to the councils, talking to business. We've all got to find a way. And whether that's just simply on a business's Facebook when it's coming, encouraging people to pledge their card, because it's going to be a wee card, pledge their card to hospitality, that I'm going to spend mine in hospitality or whatever. And I think we can create a bit of a love your local moment within that and help drive our own footfall. but I'm optimistic we'll see it.
Yeah. Once places are opening again, and obviously they're putting their social distancing measures in place, we've had a few kind of questions about social distancing, and I suppose in terms of who will be policing those numbers. Is it just up to businesses to work out themselves once the regulations come out there how many they can fit? Are there is there someone that will be coming and policing those and keeping them on track?
Well, I suppose, I suppose I look backwards to when we were open, how it was being formulated and what the journey looked like. I would say, look, it's based on risk assessment. So every premise has to do a risk assessment and work out what the numbers are, and then what mitigations are there. You remember, it was always 2 meters or a minimum of 1 meter with mitigations. It wasn't just 1 meter. So what are your mitigations? Is that screen? Is that back to back and a bit apart? What mitigations have you put in place there? It also is about accessing bathrooms, all of that. A key element in the risk assessment is going to actually be ventilation. I know that, like I challenged the ministers in England to give us specifications. Now they're saying no, that will probably come now in years to come, as in building control will develop up a new way of looking at ventilation. But it will be even about okay, do you open all your windows and doors for 5 minutes every hour just to make sure there's fresh air, and looking at practical sense in there, and all that will form part of your social distance. And I know it sounds daft, but all of those mitigations come because it's no longer about droplets, it's aerosol, and it's that then moving around within the air, and how do you maximize that circulation piece. Enforcement wise, I would expect it's still going to come down the line of the HOs, environmental health officers, because that tends to be the element of it. There has been considerable talk about COVID wardens, but I think they're more for the high street as opposed to managing people outside premises rather than in, because at the end of the day, guys, I know it's tough. I have lots of members saying to me, but how can I make somebody? The bottom line is going to always be, it's our business. We have to be seen to take all reasonable steps to get people to social distance, as we do to wear masks. So it's about managing arrival of people. If you're booking tables, don't book them all at 2 o'clock. So you stagger arrival a bit, and you can get people seated. It's all about how you inform your customers. And what we did previously, and we will do again, we actually turn the regulations into a customer journey. So you can actually take it right from booking, do you inform them of stuff, right through to arrival, briefing at the table, how we take orders, all of that. And we'll do all of that again and continuously refresh it. Our hope is that when we open, or whatever regulations we open under, we'll be able to readjust as we progress. And I think we all hope that COVID will go down to, look, the term I use is an acceptable risk. COVID's not going away. I think there are challenges because we're so fixated on it that even, it's a bit like, I'm not comparing it to flu, but if you turn around and say, okay, there's an acceptable risk of flu, and unfortunately X numbers died here, we don't report those. But if we keep on reporting COVID in every turn, it becomes that spotlight. So I think that there's a journey we're on, and hopefully regulations will be able to adjust rapidly.
Yeah, a couple of questions. Oh, sorry, go ahead, Sharon.
Sorry, Colin, there was a discussion this morning with the accommodation providers too, just picking up on your point about the environmental health officers. And environmental health, the role to date has mostly been a reactive one. And there was a discussion this morning that we should be maybe changing that to more proactive. So actually encouraging the industry to get involved and have those conversations earlier. And also to get maybe some consistency across the 11 councils area, because what we found the last time around was there was inconsistency due to interpretation of regulations that were coming at us thick and fast. It was nobody's fault really, but I think now in this planning period that we're all in, it's establishing what those mean for everybody, and that could actually limit some aggro down the line. With environmental health officers and customers and owners all coming into
coming into contact in the middle of the restaurant floor. So it's to try and engage with that now, and it was something I think that through the planning which you've talked about, and engaging with the councils through the various avenues that you have, is actually getting some consistency across environmental health and a proactive relationship going for the trade.
Absolutely, Sharon. And I remember back, I think it was a Friday night that you text me at 6:30 going, guys are out enforcing this and it's not right. And we had to go to the chief executive of that council to go and tell his guys they got it wrong. And look, people make mistakes, and I think that's the first thing we have to do. We're not infallible, and a policeman, an EHO, whatever, will maybe make a mistake. It's how we address that and work together. It's not about trying to hang them out to dry when they make a mistake. But look, everybody has to learn from what happened before. I mean, I have approached both the PSNI and the Northern Ireland Environmental Health Association to work with us, so when we develop our customer journey, they all input it and understand it, and we all agree what the interpretation of the regulations are, and then we can communicate that really clearly to our guys and remove that problem that has existed. And look, it hasn't gone away even lockdown. I had police enforcement stuff lately, which was wrong. But like, I just rang the headquarters, we had a chat through, they went back, and look, I actually said to them, you don't need to go and apologise. They sent their policeman back to apologise. It's not what it's about. What we need is a system that gets the interpretation right first, but if there is problems, we can solve them immediately. There's a channel to do that.
That's right. And I think this morning actually that was, and it's something to let the panels and the people involved today know that there will be, we know there would be changes to restrictions, but there's 50-page documents kicking about on Tourism NI website, stuff that you've got as well. So what will happen this time is there will be just the little updates coming through, so you don't have to wade through the whole thing. The updates will be flagged through Tourism NI. The quality standards manager went through that this morning. So it's about just keeping in line with the easings, with your industry organisations such as Colin's, to make sure that you're up to date. We'll get it out hopefully this time. And I remember that Friday night well. I think it was 11:30 was the last call that night. But that's something hopefully we won't have the issues with basically the legislation coming out at 5 o'clock and into trade. And we were in full service with legislation coming through and trying to get that communication out. So hopefully that won't happen this time, and that when we get the legislation, the trade will be as up to date, quicker, which will help.
I think actually, I mean that our overall guidance is 183 pages. I think we bring that down. That's why we bring it into a customer journey or a service journey. We divide them out in a normal language that says, when somebody's sitting at the table, here's the rules. When somebody gets served, here are the rules. Member staff, here are the rules. And that's key, because look, I appreciate everybody on this call. If there's anybody left on a Friday afternoon, shortly after 3, they're busy running their business, and it'd be like, my members pay me to take government policy and turn it into English, tell them what they need to do and give them the tools to do it.
Absolutely, and I think we are starting to eke into Friday afternoon. So I think we have covered the vast bulk, but I suppose just on that note, Colin, we've had a lovely message through about the fantastic support that Hospitality Ulster has been to its members over the past year, and how much they do really appreciate that. So yes. Who did you pay to put that message in? I won't be joking. No, so I think the members really do appreciate it. I suppose I'll do my plug now, and I know Colin and Sharon both shared details of today's event. So if there's anyone who's here today but is not on our mailing list and wants to make sure they're hearing about any events that we're delivering as the Tourism Enterprise Development Programme, do head to tourismni.com, and there's a sign up button there, and just you can pop your details in and you can make sure you're hearing about anything we're doing in future as well. I'll get my little plug in as well. And if there's any other questions that maybe have come through here, I'm just conscious that it's Friday afternoon, that your question hasn't been answered, but you feel like you've got a burning question, do feel free to drop me an email at industry.development@tourismni.com, and I can pass that on to Colin and Sharon, and we'll come back to you as best as we can. We also have our COVID support helpline. The details are on the screen there. So if there's something that you'd like to chat to about with our team who can hopefully point you in the right direction, then do feel free to give a call on that number or head to covid19.tourismni.com, and there's an online inquiry form there. So you know, anything, something that maybe an area that you want some bespoke advice on, or that you're really struggling in and you're not sure which way to turn, and in terms of maybe something to do with COVID-19 that's happening, then that's a good first step. Also, if you head to covid19.tourismni.com and click on the support centre, you can find recordings and support materials from all of our TED webinars that we've delivered to date on the previous webinars tab. So if there's something you might have been interested in and you've missed it, there's recordings and lots of materials there, and lots of support materials on guidelines and different things there. So do feel free to have a little browse about on there if you haven't already. We've been recording today's session, so we'll have a recording up online on the covid19.tourismni.com. I'll be saying that on my sleep page. So we'll have a recording up there as soon as we possibly can as well. So do check out the previous webinars section and keep an eye out for this, and you can feel free to forward it on to anyone who maybe wasn't on the session today but might be interested in what we've talked about today and all of the wisdom that we've had from Colin and Sharon. So yeah, thank you so much, guys, for giving up of your Friday afternoon, and we had great numbers today, so hopefully it's been very useful to everyone that's joined us, and thank you so much, and hopefully see you again soon, maybe in real life next time.
In the pub.
In the pub, that sounds good. Thank you so much. Cheers, everyone. Bye.
Bye.